Baldy, Merry Christmas. I trust you had a happy holiday.
Yeah, it was good, guys. I did a lot of work, did a lot of games around the country, but it was a lot of fun. So it wasn't a big surprise, but yeah, it's been a good holiday, man. Looking forward to the new year.
Yeah, can you help us try to figure out here what's going on with? I almost said the great Brock Purdy. Of course, 49er fans are going nuts. This is a guy that, as you know, last pick of the draft, so expectations were low, and he's played so well. Can we say now, Baldy, at this point, that he's at least a competent quarterback, maybe better, or are there still things we need to see from him before we can even make that proclamation?
No, I think it's safe to say. I mean, this has been a solid month. I mean, he doesn't turn the ball over. Jawan Jennings doesn't, drop a ball into Derek Forrest's hands last week. I mean, it's remarkable, really, just the amount of poise, his pocket presence. And what you're seeing in this offense is what every offense wants. You're just seeing these explosive plays where whether you're getting the ball to Kittle or to Ayuk on the run, and they're just tearing up really good defenses. I've seen enough. I think he's the real deal. I don't know exactly how everybody missed, but I feel like it's a bad miss when it comes to just quarterback analysis. You could say, okay, he could be taller, he could have a stronger arm, he could have all those things. Joe Montana didn't have those things, and they will never, ever forget Joe Montana in San Francisco or in the NFL. And I'm not comparing him to Joe by any stretch, but as far as why somebody would drop to the 262nd, draft pick, those are some of the things that would make somebody drop.
I keep waiting for the other shoe to fall with Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
This is the game where this is why he went last. If that was going to happen, is there anything you see that might lead to that game coming?
Nope. No.
Okay.
I mean, just even the opening drive. I mean, came out hot. They got stuffed on 3rd down and 4th and 1, but he takes the team right down the field. And he makes one good throw after another, hits Kittle over the middle. He's converting 3rd downs. He's making the right reads. That's a good defense, a really good defense that Washington has. A great front. It's hard to run the ball against those guys. He had to make certain throws. And I understand, everybody's he can't be this good. This just can't be real. I mean, I get it. But I can't. But the thing that I keep coming back to is his mechanics. Mechanics are really sound. He doesn't get happy feet. He can beat you from the pocket. He's got Montez Sweat out there on the edge the other day, and I don't know how he kind of got away from him, but he threw an incomplete pass. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be a sack on the play. Gets away from him. He's a really good player, 6'6", 280 pounds, and he can run like the deer. He gets away from him. You could just go through the checklist, and I remember talking to Debo before he got hurt in the Tampa game, and I was like, "So tell me, let's go through the checklist, Debo. Let's pocket presence, no fear over the middle, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, yep, that's who he is. And I feel like I keep going through that checklist of things that you got to be able to do, that you want your quarterback to be able to do. And I keep, hitting the same checklist. It doesn't change.
Yeah, Baldy, you touched on one of the most mind-boggling aspects of this whole thing to me, and that is how so many teams missed on this guy. When you look at so many franchises who for years and years are trying to find, that guy, and Brock Purdy may be one of those guys. Is it possible that teams are they're overvaluing the wrong things when they're evaluating how good these guys are going to be coming out of college?
I think so. I do. Because one thing I remember, I did Brock Purdy's first game at Ames, Iowa. I think it was against Kansas, and they'd waited 3 or 4 weeks. They knew he was a high recruit, and Matt Campbell just said, let's just let him watch for a little bit. Didn't play him right away. But then when he took over, he started 47 straight games. So, 47 games, you learn a lot about a player. Just the way, the Steelers learned a lot about Kenny Pickett starting 49 games at Pitt. And, you get a chance to really watch a guy week in, week out, go against some good teams in the Big 12, TCU, Oklahoma, whatever. And, he played really well in so many of those games, put Iowa State on the map. And so I think that matters. And I think, he's been cross your fingers and, knock on wood, all that stuff. He's been healthy for the most part throughout his college career. And so, there's a lot of guys that come into this business, Zach Wilson, and they can't stay healthy. And, they're just not productive players. And all they're doing is falling in love with some arm strength and what they did at the Combine and trying to make ridiculous, comparisons to Patrick Mahomes. And instead of just watching the guy week in, week out play quarterback. And I think you fall in love and you pay attention to the wrong things.
Talking with Brian Baldinger, our NFL insider here. Baldy, I want to jump over to the other side of the ball where I believe the 49ers have the Defensive Player of the Year in Nick Bosa. Defensive Player of the Week for the second time this month after winning Defensive Player of the Month last month. Is he actually getting better as this season progresses?
Yeah, he is. In fact, if you look at just the month of December, I joke around at Shark Week, watching the 49ers defense line. It's been Shark Month for Nick Bosa. It's just been a Shark Month. I mean, 6 sacks and 12 quarterback hits and 2 forced fumbles. I mean, the numbers are crazy, and we're not out of the month yet. So I do think he's getting better. When you just watch this, you just go really in the weeds, and you just watch the techniques and the fundamentals and how he's winning in the run game, what he does to players, how he's moving around, how he rushes from the right side different than the left side. I feel like he's, and then he told me, a couple weeks ago, he said, he wants to be the defensive rookie. I mean, he wants to be the defensive player of the year, there's no doubt. But, he still does. He could still probably play more plays. Instead of playing 75% of the snaps, he could play 85 or 90. He could do it. But, he's thinking about those 3 games that he wants to play in the postseason, which is smart. I didn't give it that kind of thought. But he's thinking, he wants to be in Glendale, Arizona, Super Bowl 57. And so, there's a little bit of a pace to get there because I think he could put up even bigger numbers than he is. And I was ticked, to be honest with you, when Carson Wentz threw that touchdown pass, and then they went for 2 and he sacked Carson Wentz and he doesn't get any credit for it. I just don't get how that's not a sack. They score 2 points in 1-score game, yet Nick stops him from doing it and he doesn't get credit for it. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter. Yeah, check out Baldy's breakdown. He goes in depth on how Bosa's doing what he's doing. Baldy, I'm really interested in your answer to this. And I know it'd probably be easy for you to say, I don't know, you'd be modest, but you played at a high level. Let's say you were lining up against Bosa. You knew that, all right, I got Bosa today. How would you approach the job of trying to protect and to block in the run Nick Bosa in an NFL game?
Well, I've had to block Reggie White. I've had to block, Lawrence Taylor. So, they're 2 of the best of all time. So a couple things. One, I'm going to hold as long as I possibly can, all right? And if the official says, get your hands inside, I'll get my hands inside. But I'm going to come up with some new holding techniques that I did actually one Sunday against Lawrence Taylor that pissed him off, but I got away with it. And then I'm going to demand help and chip help and on almost any given play that's, more than 2 seconds down the field.
Yeah.
So we're going to draw some new protections up on the sideline, and I'm going to get my grips into their shoulder pads as quickly as I possibly can.
Survival.
It's a sound strategy for
survival.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that. Another one of the 49ers star players who's really kind of broken out the last couple weeks, a big conversation around this area, especially early in the year, was like, where's George Kittle? What's happened to George Kittle? Why isn't he getting targets? Well, now he's getting targets. He's racked up over 200 yards the last 2 weeks, 4 touchdowns. What's changed here? Is it just the target rate, or are they doing something different offensively to free him up?
Well, they are calling his number, like on the bootleg when they flipped it to the left and he caught it. He caught a 12-yard pass and took it to the end zone. That's just a play for George, so they're calling his play. But this Brock Purdy, when he finds him in the open field as either a check down or late over the middle where he's not the primary, but he's still finding him. And the big thing is he's getting the ball to George in the open field. And so you can see, in the 4 touchdowns he's got right now, outside of the one in the end zone where he could have thrown it to, Ray McLeod or to George Kittle. He had his choice. They were both open. The safety kind of blew it. But for the most part, it's, getting George in space. And like he did, I guess, 3 years ago when he led the league and set a record for yards after the catch or whatever it was. That's what he's doing right now. He was coached to not be tackled by one guy. And so you see George in, on the open freeways there, you see his speed just open up, and all of a sudden he's looking like that, Travis Kelce that we think he is and think he can be. And that's what he looks like right now because of where they're getting the ball to him in the open spaces, and then he could do so much with it after the catch.
Brian Baldinger with us here in the Morning Roast. Baldy, yesterday, Kyle and I convened a meeting of the Fraud Squad as we looked at NFC contenders and tried to identify, legitimate contenders or fraud. The 49ers obviously just destroying people right now. How many teams in the NFC right now do you think right now are legitimate Super Bowl contenders? And specifically the Vikings. Do you agree with Kyle, who declared them yesterday frauds?
Frauds.
I'm leaning more. I mean, Minnesota people are gonna. I mean, I used to live in Minnesota. I have a great deal of respect for the Skull Country, but I just defensively, I mean, you can talk about the comeback against the Colts and just getting shellacked by the Cowboys and by the Eagles, and name them as frauds, but I just don't think they have a championship defense. And so I think offensively they can put up a lot of points, and if you can protect Kirk Cousins, I mean, nobody's better than Justin Jefferson right now. So I think offensively they have what it takes to advance in the playoffs, but defensively they're just not very good. And so you saw Daniel Jones last week up in Minnesota throwing a guy's name Isaiah Hodgins and the old 49er Richie James, and he was carving them up. And I see it week in, week out. I just don't believe they're a championship defense. I think the Cowboys, if they play a certain style, they could be that team. Otherwise, I feel like it's the 49ers and Eagles are going to meet in the NFC Championship game.
Are the Cowboys the only team that could stop that from happening? Like, do you see San Francisco or Philly slipping up before that?
I don't see it unless there's just, if Jalen Hurts can't come back from the shoulder injury, I could see something like that. But I just think they're too deep. They're too well built right now that, I think they can beat you in a lot of different styles, and that's what you have to be able to do when you get deep in the playoffs. I'm not sure the Cowboys right now, they've got one sack in the last 3 games. They're not pressuring the quarterback, and there's major concerns on the back end of their defense. So teams are like putting up a lot of points, whether it's Gardner Minshew or whether it's Trevor Lawrence.
I think we lost Baldy for just a second. There we go.
Dak,
yeah. Go ahead, Baldy. We lost it for a second, but we got you. Yeah.
Okay. Season's got.
And we're endeavoring.
Exceptions in the middle of the field. I don't know if I'm on here,
guys.
We got you. Sorry about that. We're good to go. We're good. Yeah, we got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I just, Dak's got to go prove it to all of us that he can be a big-time quarterback in the postseason. And you can pay a guy $45 million. That's just the going rate for a starting quarterback. But he's got to do it in the postseason, and that's how all these guys get measured.
One of the things that people worried about during the preseason was the 49er offensive line, especially the interior of the offensive line. Brendel and Banks and Burford, and the offensive line obviously playing at a high level. You having been an offensive lineman, as we know, how much has that impressed you? To what extent does having McCaffrey maybe make their jobs easier?
I think McCaffrey makes any offense better. They played well. I mean, Banks has been really, really good. And him and Trent on the left side has been outstanding. I think, I think Brendel is what he is. I mean, I think he's a good player. I don't think he's an outstanding center. But in that system and in that scheme where so much is just zone blocking, it's really about how you block next to the guy. And so Burford's been really good. Burford and Banks are both big guys inside. I like big guards. You're going up against big defensive tackles in this business. But for the most part, especially since Brock Purdy took over, the middle of the pocket has been really sturdy. And it's been flat and it's been strong. And you can't ask really for anything more for that.
I want to jump back over to the other side of the ball real quick, and I want to see if you agree with me on this, because obviously you've forgotten more about football than I'll ever know. But I know Nick Bosa is the headliner of this defense, but to me, what Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw do in the second level, especially in coverage, really allow the defensive line to eat, to use your phrase. Do you agree with that, or am I off base?
No. I mean, those guys, they're an amazing tandem of linebackers, and they really have, Fred always goes to the 3 wide receiver side. Dre always goes to the 2 receiver side. When it's in pass coverage, they're both excellent. But it's just their speed of decision making is just flat out amazing. How quickly they diagnose things and then take, the right angles to get there. Fred's just an amazing player. He just doesn't miss games. He doesn't miss plays. His diagnosis is spot on. I don't know how you could be up for every single game that he plays, but he just is. He's just ready to play every Sunday. And Dre Greenlaw, it's a shame that he's not a Pro Bowl player because he leads the team in tackles. He's a Pro Bowl player. He just didn't get the recognition that, Fred has earned, but he'll get there. Sometimes you miss it by a year, but together, they're an amazing tandem. They really play well together. They play well off each other. They both attack the line of scrimmage. When they want to get a fifth rusher in there, they like to bring Fred. That puts Dre in a position where he's got a lot of room to cover, and he seems to be able to handle all that.
Baldy, what kind of coach, in your opinion, would it take? Maybe not a name specifically, but a type of coach would it take in Denver to get them competitive and at least football-wise functional again?
Well, I think, I think you need a proven coach. Like Jacksonville got Doug Peterson. He's a proven coach. And you can see how the offense has really developed, how Trevor Lawrence has really gotten confident. And he was a big part of the free agent acquisitions and what they needed. And it's all coming together right now. I just think you got to go out there and look at a guy that might need a second chance, the way Kyle Shanahan or Mike Shanahan needed a second chance after the Raiders to find Denver. I think sometimes you got to take a guy and say, okay, this is what they did. Let's give them a second chance. And I think there's guys out there like that. I don't know that you can take a first-year coach like they did. And look, I know Nathaniel Hackett really well. I think he's a really good coach. The quarterback has not played well at all. They've had a lot of injuries, and he's the fall guy right now. And sometimes it's just easy to make the coach the fall guy, and that's not what they need right now.
Baldy, we appreciate it. Thanks very much. We're looking forward to the rest of this 49ers season. We'll talk to you again soon.
Likewise. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year. Brian Baldinger, our 95.7 The Game NFL insider.